Today's Bible reading is from Psalm 8. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established. What are humans that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God, and crowned them with the glory and honour. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the seas. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
Hello, MCC. Denise here. I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight. I feel like it's been a while since I've been there. I was sick last week with COVID, and then this week I'm away with Drew for our 35th wedding anniversary. Couldn't miss that. However, via Zoom and time travel, I am able to be in two places at once. So I'm glad to be here. As we continue with our series on what it means to be human, one of the topics that I wanted to explore was the rise of artificial intelligence, or AI, and what implications that has for us as humans. So I turned to a former colleague of mine, Dr. Victoria Lorimer, and asked if she could help us. Vicky is currently a senior research fellow at Notre Dame University in WA and did her doctoral research in technological human enhancement, so she's well placed to prompt our thinking on AI. Brisbane, unfortunately, was a long way to come. So instead, she's written a sermon for us, and I'm reading it on her behalf. I'll try very hard to do it justice. So here goes. Greetings, MCC, and thank you for allowing me to offer the following reflection on being human as we think about artificial intelligence. Current artificial intelligence tools show evidence of human reasoning. That's what a Microsoft research team concluded in their investigation into the problem-solving capacities of their generative AI model, GPT-4. What's your immediate response to such a claim? Is that an exciting thought, or is it alarming? The arrival of these accessible natural language processing and generative AI models like ChatGPT, DALL-E, and Bard has focused attention on the power and potential of artificial intelligence. While these types of algorithms previously required a degree of coding knowledge to use, the development of AI models that we can access using everyday language prompts has ushered such technologies into the public arena. As a result, we're all having a lot more conversations about AI and what it can or can't, or should or shouldn't be able to do. Wannabe tech entrepreneurs race to update their LinkedIn profiles with newfound AI whisperer prompt engineering expert, a short-lived profession if ever there was one. Some commentators are uncovering apparently malevolent AI alter egos, while others are claiming that they've finally achieved the goal set out by computing pioneer Alan Turing to create machine intelligence that's indistinguishable from human intelligence. We can characterize these responses to AI on a spectrum running from algorithmic anxiety to algorithmic awe. Algorithmic anxiety can range from the pedestrian, students will cheat more, to the existential, AI will destroy all we hold dear. Algorithmic awe runs a similar gamut, from marvelling at the uncanny likeness of the latest pop culture deep fake to the blessed by the algorithm phrase doing the rounds on social media, which equates algorithmic outcomes with divine beneficence. So, how should we speak and think about AI? I've argued in my academic work that we ought to resist a stance of technological pessimism in engaging human enhancement technologies, including AI, from the perspective of Christian faith and theology. We shouldn't rule out certain technological interventions as transgressive from the outside, the playing God argument. Rather, our creativity and ingenuity are foundational to our being and ought to be used. Essentially, this locates all thinking about technology in the realm of ethics and discernment, a much trickier space than the clear delineation of a more prohibitive worldview. All this means I'm somewhat reluctant to curb enthusiasm over the potential of emerging technologies. I'm more accustomed to arguing why people need not fear or outright reject every technological development that promises to drastically alter what we think of as normative human biology. I've focused on the opportunities that particular technologies might represent, ways in which we might exercise this creative agency to improve aspects of our creaturely existence. Much of that work has concerned the comfortably distant future, dealing in the realm of possibilities and hope. But today, I want to focus more on the immediate and concrete questions. There's always a place for speculation over possible AI futures, both in terms of risk and potential. Such reflections may be undertaken from explicitly religious vantage points, or they may not. Ultimately, however, both anxiety and awe responses, framed in terms of religion or otherwise, distract us from the present reality of AI. Our language describing these recent generative AI tools is enabling these distractions. If we anthropomorphize to say that the algorithm knows or believes or wants or intends something, then we shift the focus away from the actual humans deploying the algorithm. For these algorithms, as they presently exist, remain human all the way down. What do I mean by that? Well, the models are trained by humans on data sets of content generated by humans and used by humans for human goals. It really is human all the way down. For example, current image generation and captioning tools are built on the low-cost labour of humans recruited through crowdsourcing platforms such as Amazon's Mechanical Turk to manually annotate millions of images, also produced by humans and harvested without consent from various online image repositories. This is just one example of how Mechanical Turk co-opts human cognitive labour in a process that's widely assumed to be entirely the work of artificial intelligence, representing the human workers as information processors barely distinguishable from the computers fulfilling related tasks in the same workflow. The training of AI models on image data sets and the interpretation of those images by AI is a political task, dependent as it is on the creation of categories such as race or gender for labelling images. The labour involved is highly exploitative. For example, the push for ethical AI often depends on the manual labouring of disturbing and toxic content by underpaid casual workers in the global south. Given the context in which these generative AI applications have been developed, it might be safe to assume that thoroughly human intelligence is right now using them for ends that are equally worthy of scrutiny. It's not only evil AI overlords that can steal, kill, and destroy. Artificial intelligence applications have been stealing our data, killing creativity, and destroying livelihoods for some time. To be clear, this is not a flaw inherent in the technology itself. These awe and anxiety responses both result in our scapegoating AI for our own societal failings. It's further proof that technology alone can never be our salvation, because technology is always used by humans. Practically speaking, what can we do? First, we can avoid hyperbole in the way we speak about large language models, the type of AI model used for applications like ChatGPT. These algorithms do not know or believe in the way that we do. We can educate ourselves about the different models of generative AI. Some are developed and trained more ethically than others. And we can learn about their strengths and limitations. A greater understanding of how generative AI works and the nature of human involvement at all levels, from design, training, and implementation, will go some way towards dispelling both algorithmic awe and anxiety. It will hopefully also guide our use. For example, we might think very deliberately about if and how we use AI-generated art. I'm terrible at drawing or creating graphic images on my own. With a little prompting, maybe DALL-E can supply me with the perfect illustrative image for that analogy I want to employ in the class I'm teaching tomorrow. Possibly that would be both a reasonable and benign usage. But if I'm exclusively using AI-generated work for all kinds of purposes, particularly public-facing or commercial, in order to avoid copyright infringement or the need to pay an artist, perhaps I ought to think again. There are proposals underway already to think about how AI-generated material is treated in the TV and film industry, with the Writers Guild of America calling for the industry categories of literary material and source material to exclude scripts produced by AI, and therefore not impacting the compensation or credit owing to human script writers. How do we access and engage with these products in ways that encourage the entertainment industry to treat its human workers decently? This sensitivity to the way in which generative AI might devalue human creative works could carry over to other creative outputs beyond the artistic. The paid GitHub Copilot tool promises a coding collaborator for software developers. However, much of its training data includes code distributed under copyleft licensing, such as the new general public license. While the legalities of AI outputs in relation to copyright are still under dispute, and the extension of copyright protections is surely not the solution, there are at least ethical questions around the monetization of tools so beholden to code outputs that were intended to be free and open source in perpetuity. In centering the human aspects of generative AI, we should avoid both fear-mongering and fawning. We don't delude ourselves that the technology itself is the problem or the solution. The threat that generative AI represents for various human creative activities and the livelihood of human creators throws into relief the fact that we've already devalued many of the same activities in thoroughly human ways. How many of us get irritated by paywalls preventing free access to online news, for example? Rather than give way too quickly to anxiety, a turn to the human dimension allows us to consider not only the way in which developers and corporations use and intend these generative AI tools, but also the context that shapes user motivations. Cheating would be less of an issue if our approach to higher education focused more on learning than on grades. And if our teaching staff were sufficiently trained and supported in terms of workload, remuneration, and job security to develop assessment frameworks and tasks that either incorporate the thoughtful use of AI or allow for little incentive or benefit from using it. The same goes for the threat that AI poses for jobs. The idea that technologies will remove the need for certain types of labour is not a new one and has spurred parallel or anxiety responses. The progress myth was underwritten with the hope that the industrial and technological eras would do away with many menial tasks, lift living conditions for all, and provide us with more leisure to pursue intellectual and artistic interests. We all know how successful that was. Nevertheless, we continue to see that techno-utopian rhetoric. Consider the promise of AI according to the World Economic Forum, who said, ChatGPT and more broadly AI may well incentivize us to create and harness the intellectual equivalent of slow food, a healthier, more nutritious diet for our curiosity and hungry mind, rather than the quick fix we may get from fast food, even if most of the time we do consume fast food. In reality, more sophisticated algorithms and AI applications have resourced the emergence of the gig economy, its workers far more often characterising their experiences as exploitative and anxiety-driven rather than flexible, as touted by many associated platforms. The World Economic Forum's glowing outlook just quoted completely ignores the reality that the slow food movement is a phenomenon exclusively restricted to consumers who enjoy the choice that comes with economic and cultural privilege, and skirts the enormous disadvantages of a diet consisting mainly in fast food. Even if the analogy applies, it's hardly an appealing future. Though I've focused on awe and anxiety responses here, we also often see a third kind of response to the launch of new generative AI tools: contempt, or at least dismissal. I felt it myself when I've tested out claims that ChatGPT might be the research assistant we've all been waiting for, only to have the AI tool recommend spurious scholarly citations in a recommended reading list for my next area of research. This is a known issue with AI, referred to as hallucination. There are plenty of responses highlighting the underwhelming or error-prone aspects of generative AI, often with a tone of exaltation or superiority. While often more realistic than awe or anxiety extremes, this disdainful response is still not ideal. The trajectory of machine learning suggests that a good amount of the deficiencies in AI outputs are interim ones, and outputs will be substantially improved with time. Focusing on the technical shortcomings of current AI, particularly in making a case for the necessity of human creators and human labour, still often disguises the extent to which existing models depend on human labour and cognition. Further, it reinforces the implicit assumption that it's the optimization of productivity that's a good thing, so long as AI itself is reliable and accurate. The case for valuing humans as creators, workers, and contributors shouldn't be argued on the grounds that their contribution outperform those of AI against the kind of productivity measures that govern a neoliberal capitalist system. We're setting ourselves up for failure. Corporations have always tended to leverage the increased efficiency promised by technology for increased productivity and profit rather than for the benefit of their employees in terms of increased leisure or creative fulfillment. But by focusing our attention on the human elements in AI, those involved in its development and those let down by its broken promises, maybe we can instead rethink the measures we use for human contributions and productivity. What if ethical and legal issues gaining attention as a result of recent leaps in generative AI provide the long-needed incentive to prioritise creativity and genuine collaborations leading to flourishing? Perhaps this might prompt us to think about how we value human creative outputs more generally. How do we ensure that AI doesn't crush creativity but promote it? As with most things, it's far easier to say what won't work than what will. As long as we see the technology itself as either the problem or the solution, we stay within the confines of a system that equates productivity with profitability. It's only with a transformed set of values that AI might be used for true benefit. So let's keep our focus firmly on the human elements of AI for the time being. And isn't this a real